Perfect. So very happy to have today Adam Curran with us. Do I pronounce that right? It's Curran, right?
You sure did. Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. Where are you currently?
I'm in Charleston, South Carolina, hence the ticker on our fund, YALL. We say YALL around here.
You do, right? You have to educate me because I'm still learning American. So there we go. So your fund is called YALL, and I think that the website is called God Bless America, right? Is that the theme?
That's correct. It's the God Bless America ETF, and I just got to thank you for shining a light on it. Of course, I think it came across your radar because of our large holding within Tesla. But just trying to get the word out there that individuals can invest their money and vote with their investments and support businesses that are staying out of the realm of social and political activism. That's the basis for the fund. And Tesla holds one of the largest positions in there because of that.
It does. I saw that, and that is obviously the reason why I include it in my daily tables. I do tables of actively managed ETFs. I mean, I'm vaccinated against index ETFs. I just hate those, no matter the price and how cheap they are. I just think it's the worst idea ever. And so I'm really helping or trying to help make people conscious about actively managed ETFs because they usually think that's only mutual funds, right? And I just think this whole category of actively managed ETFs deserves much more attention, much more focus. And yes, I came across yours. If I remember right, it opened October 10th. Is that about it? I think
That's
that was
correct.
The date there you go. And you've had quite a ride. But before we get into that, my first question was, what in the world made you have a political theme for an ETF? Because, I mean, we obviously know that on the other side, they package it as ESG or whatever, but they never, put it really under a political spotlight, while yours is clearly right wing. So how did that happen?
Well, oddly enough, when I started off to create the fund, it wasn't set out to be like a right-wing fund. Now, of course, it's been categorized as anti-ESG. It's been categorized as the conservative flag-waving types fighting back. But I just thought it was a shrewd investment thesis. I just thought it was good business for publicly traded companies to stay out of political and social activism. And I thought by these companies going out there and making statements surrounding items that were dividing the nation, you're offending and you're isolating 49 to 51% of your potential customers and your shareholders and your employees. So when we created our fund, we set out to basically just boycott and eliminate all companies that were making political and social activist statements and just give people a financial chassis to invest in businesses that were putting profits over politics. When we went through the process of getting the prospectus approved by the SEC, we had a number of conversations with compliance attorneys and got feedback from the SEC. And they kind of said, I don't know who exactly steered us in this direction, but someone said, hey, you got to pick a side. And that was very easy for us to pick a side because it's most of the people making the activist statements seem to fall on one side of the aisle. It's always funny, too, because people say, well, Adam, will you boycott a company on the right wing who makes statements? And then I always go, well, which companies on the right side of the aisle are actually making statements? And it's typically just two companies people say, Chick-fil-A and Hobby Lobby. And of course, Chick-fil-A is not even publicly traded. There's so few right-wing organizations that are delving in the waters of political and social activism. Now, granted, if you've heard me do any of the radio that we do and the speaking that I do, it becomes abundantly clear that I am a God-fearing, flag-waving conservative person as well. So the way we created the fund, though, was on account of countless conversations that I was having with my clients. I do kitchen table financial planning, and I sit down with mom and pop investors 800 miles away from the New York Stock Exchange down here in Charleston, South Carolina. And I just kept hearing time and time again that I believe in the capital markets. The stock market has been very good to me. I want to invest in the stock markets, but I will be darned if any of my money is siphoned and supports XYZ company. Did you hear what they just said surrounding Florida's parental rights and education? I will not put any of my money in ABC company. Did you hear what they just said surrounding Georgia's election reform? Or did you see that they signed the 2019 stakeholder capital pledge? Or do you see how they're grandstanding and virtue signaling surrounding this piece of legislation that was just passed? So people were saying to me time and time again that they want to invest in the stock market, but they were sick and tired of supporting woke companies. So I said, man, let's see if Wall Street has something out there that will fit their need or scratch this itch. And there was nothing. There was a handful of conservative funds that were out there, but most of them kind of turned into old, crusty conservative investments, right? So it was like energy, utility companies, industrial companies, and none of them had the technology component. None of them had innovative, forward-thinking businesses like Tesla in them. So we said, we got to create something that has exposure to all 11 sectors of the S&P 500, weights those sectors according to their market capitalization of the overall stock market, and also create an investment chassis that people who see the world through the same lens as me, people who believe in those conservative American values, can feel good about investing their money into our fund.
Great. So I have a couple of questions because that was a lot to unpack. The first one is, so you started off saying by doing this, by taking sides, you actually alienate half of the market, right? 49, 51, whichever side you want. Did that prove to be true? Is it really that you find you have conservative investors, they come to you because that's the theme, or is it just a typical, I choose an ETF decision? Are people more politically motivated when they become your clients?
I do think so. I think so. And look, when we named our fund the God Bless America ETF, I knew darn well that there is a subset of American citizens who are triggered by patriotism. They're triggered even when they hear the word God Bless America. They immediately kind of isolate us into the unsophisticated, dumb conservatives who are patriotic, America and all that. So I knew darn well that people who vote with their left hand weren't going to be lining up to make investments in our fund. So, I would probably say most of the individuals who are supporting my little American dream, share a similar worldview to me and are sick and tired of businesses making comments and virtue signaling and delving in the waters of political and social activism. That's why our fund was created. It wasn't meant to be this polarizing left-wing, right-wing thing. It was just, you're a publicly traded company. Stay in your lane. Focus on business. No, you don't need to make a social media post surrounding the Roe v. Wade ruling. No, you don't need to have an opinion about every single woke item that crosses our newswire. Just build cars. Just provide electricity, just build widgets. So that was the mindset. But unfortunately, with how divided and how tribal and how polarized our world is, and because we have such a patriotic stance, we knew darn well that people on the left side of the aisle probably weren't going to take an interest in our fund.
Understood. And so you're a CFA, right? You came from that world. Is this your first fund? Is this the first time you do an ETF? And how did you set it up? Is this just you, the one-man show, and you delegate the back office, or how is it all set up?
Yeah, so I'm a CFP. I do come from that world, though. I used to work on a trading desk in Philadelphia, and then I worked at a hedge fund, and so I came from the Northeast, like high finance, capital markets world. And then when I moved to Charleston, South Carolina, you're kind of a long way away from all of the big Wall Street epicenters. So, our focus down here is helping the mass affluent. We help millionaires next door make investment decisions so they can live life a little bit more abundantly, retire a couple years sooner, spend an extra couple $1,000s per month, and not feel guilty about doing that or worried about the next big economic disaster or market pullback. So I am really on the front lines, sitting down with mom and pop investors. Now, why we created a fund was on account of listening day in and day out, people who listen to our radio show, people who sing from the same hymnal as me, saying, I'm sick and tired of supporting these companies. Because when you buy a share of a woke company, you're supporting that company. You're supporting them by taking an ownership interest, and you're also supporting them by providing liquidity to that business. So it seemed crazy to me to continue to siphon my investors' money into these companies that didn't share a similar worldview. And where something really clicked was an individual came and spoke to me and said, Adam, I would be okay if my investment performance was a point or two above or below the S&P 500 if I knew my money was not going into these companies. So I said, wait a second, you'd be okay if your performance wasn't as good as the S&P, but you weren't supporting these businesses. And right there, now, if you look at the performance of our fund, we're actually really proud of it. But right there, we said to ourselves, this isn't just an investment thesis. Because if you look at the ETF landscape right now, it's kind of a race to the bottom with fees, right? BlackRock is charging next to nothing because they, they get to vote proxies, which is tremendously nefarious.
That's all they want, right? I mean, I'm screaming it all the time. They're doing this to get the proxy votes. That's their main goal in life, and it's horrendous, and people don't understand it. And for the sake of having a cheap index tracker, they're giving it all away. It drives me crazy.
And I get it. I kind of get it because it's fees and they're also making money on order flow as well too. But it's I forget what I was getting at here. What was your question again?
I wanted to get back to, how big is your firm and how did this all establish? Who do you use as a back office? How do you work this out?
Yeah. So we approached a group called Tidal, and they're like a white glove ETF issuer. We interviewed a few of them, and they really just kind of took the idea and brought it to fruition. Now, my firm, helping all of these mass affluent millionaires next door, between our assets under management and some of the fixed business, we oversee about $500 million of assets, right?
Well done.
Yeah, so you just simply see our ETF and your tracker, which I appreciate so much. It's got $30 million in it. That's just a small sliver of the assets that we actually manage. If anyone is strongly considering launching an ETF, it is a tremendously capital-intensive process. This is not something just anyone could step into the Terror Dome, as Eric Balchunas says it, and just launch an ETF. Like, it is tremendously expensive, and compliance. We have a lot of manpower. My firm has about 20 people working here, and a lot of those people are sitting down at kitchen tables helping people make financial decisions. Some of them are in compliance, some of them are in marketing, but about 20 people within our firm. And as a firm, we manage about $500 million.
It's really funny because you sort of remind me of Ross Gerber, right? He does it on the West Coast. He is much more Democrat. He's quite outspoken Democrat. His funds are less politically tainted, no doubt about it. And I think they had at one point about $2 billion under management, but they must have started earlier than you. But you seem to be the East Coast equivalent to his way of building up the firm and having a lot of managed accounts, and then the top of the iceberg is the ETF, which is the visible part that we can see. Now let's get into the ETF. So currently Tesla is your biggest holding. I checked around Christmas, it was not. It was below 4%. Now it's over 13. So you were very clever because you got this whole phase of the last month that was so impressive, right? When we went from 101 to now 200 and what are we, 13 or 12. So well done on that. I mean, no doubt about it. You wrote that right. But how is your basic asset allocation? Because I mean, if your client and you personally are so sensitive to find the right stock, you must not only look at financial fundamentals, but also on the political exposure of each issue, all right? Or how does it work?
Yeah, it's funny. You started the interview off and you said, "Hey, I don't like passive investing. I'm an active ETF type person." So I'm actually a proponent of passive investing, right? I'm even though I run an active ETF, I believe you know um, 85% of index or actively managed funds fail to beat the S&P 500 index. So what we're trying to do with our fund is mirror the weighting of the overall market from a sector perspective, right? Now, the challenge that I have, and the reason you see so much Tesla, is a lot of the behemoth, mega cap technology companies are woke as woke can be. Like what we did is we took, the overall market, you got to have a market cap over $1 billion. And then we just looked at all of these events that have come across the news wire over the course of the last, 5 years. And we said, okay, did this company decide to chime in on this topic? Did this company do a social media post? Did this person come out and make a statement about this item? And then we just started eliminating and boycotting companies. Well, a lot of those mega cap companies, because they can get away with whatever they feel like, and because they're just so woke, a lot of those companies we had to eliminate from our investment universe. Tesla was one of these businesses that I look at as a technology company. Now, its official sector in the S&P 500, I think, is consumer discretionary.
It is.
I think it's a technology company.
Mm-hmm.
So we treat Tesla as one of our technology components. The overall market, 20% of the overall market is technology stocks, right? That's why you see Tesla as one of our biggest holdings. It's not our only technology holding. Now, as far as the timing on when we purchased, to be fair, when we launched the fund in October, Tesla was our biggest holding too. And we all know what happened to Tesla from October till the end of the year.
Yeah.
It literally dropped 50%.
Yeah.
Well, we liked Tesla at $200 a share. We loved it at $100 a share. So we just backed up the truck at the beginning of the year, did a fund rebalance, and that's why we've seen, the uptick as a percentage.
So that's interesting. So you see Tesla as a tech company, not as a car company, not as an energy company, but as a tech company. I think Tesla is actually more complex than that. I think it is a car company and an energy company, and probably soon a mining company, and then obviously the large technology. And that's one of the issues I have with index funds. You can't always press a company into one category just because you see with Tesla, it actually covers at least 4 of them. So, but I mean, we can talk hours why I don't like index funds. I understand that people are used to comparing to S&P, and while the S&P is there, your performance is always measured versus the S&P, and actively managed funds, since they take more costs mostly, but also because sometimes they don't make the right decisions, are below the S&P. And so people have the feeling the S&P is the right decision. But you just give up so much when you do that, right? You just give up the whole composition of your portfolio to some rating agency that changes sector allocations, that changes the way the things are gone. And I think one example is actually the S&P 500 ESG, that new thing from S&P that tries to jump on every train that's moving, trying to save their reputation if it's still possible. And when they threw out Tesla, the ESG, remember that last year in May, when they thought, just because they had some negative press, that was good enough to throw the company that is trying to be as at least ecological as possible out of the index. But I mean, again, we shouldn't just concentrate on index funds versus not index funds. Let me understand how you, as a conservative, favor Tesla so much. I mean, I understand you got it in the technology bracket. It's an all-American company. But I mean, if you sold out companies, let's say a Disney or a Coke, because they had some woke statements, Elon has some strange statements from time to time as well, right? They may more recently be less woke or actually anti-woke. But if you look after the last 5 years, you may have had moments where your patriotic heart must have been squeezed as well. So my question is, how does it come down at the very end, whether this is worthy of your fund or whether you just prefer eliminating it?
Yeah, it's one of the hardest holdings that we have, because you're right. as we speak, Elon might be on Twitter posting something, and I don't think he really identifies with any political ideology. But the reason it's in our fund, there isn't a single company under God's green earth that embodies the American dream quite like Tesla. You have a first generation immigrant who comes to this country, makes a bunch of money, risks it all to disrupt one of the largest institutions in America, and is going about doing that as we speak. Tremendous American job creator. It drives me up a wall, and I know you know more about Tesla. You've probably forgotten more about Tesla than I even know, as someone who manages a fund who owns a bunch of it. But it drives me up a wall when I see Joe Biden. He's constantly chirping about electric vehicles being made by Ford and GM because they have union employees, and just leaving Tesla out in the cold. Like, that's American ingenuity. That's the type of people we need to be lifting up and praising and championing, not a big crusty old company that is. And I take a lot of pages out of the book of people like Warren Buffett. I want to own businesses that I'm perfectly comfortable owning for 10 years. And Tesla's one of those businesses. You mentioned the sector, right? And I agree with you wholeheartedly. Like General Electric, we came to learn was really like a finance company. It had nothing to do with electricity. When the tide went out, we saw who was swimming naked. Tesla, a fork at one time was technology. A spoon was technology. Now it's a consumer staple. So you think of all of the technological advancement that came from some of the pursuits that NASA took on, right? So many things came from us trying to launch people onto the moon and into orbit. Well, Elon's doing that with SpaceX, right? He also has his fingertips on solar. He also has his fingertips now on, the human experience that is Twitter. Yeah. So I just want to put my chips on the guy who's on the front lines of so many innovative pursuits, because I know he's going to cherry pick the things that can be used in unison with his other businesses to change the world and put a dent on the universe. So that's why we invest in Tesla. Tremendous job creator. The company embodies the American dream. And, to my happiness, Elon has become like the #1 proponent of free speech, which is something that all conservatives stand for. Yeah. So that's why it's in the fund. And, oddly enough, because I speak to a lot of conservatives get this rub like, we're not forward thinking. We don't want to see the planet cleaner. And to sidetrack ESG, a lot of people think I'm like anti-ESG guy. I don't give a rip about ESG. ESG is a silly pursuit, stupid game played by stupid people. And as soon as you said, Tesla got booted, and as soon as Coca-Cola got a better ESG score than the company that's creating a car with a zero carbon footprint, and Coca-Cola, a company that's creating obesity and packaging that litters our world, has a higher ESG score than Tesla, I didn't need to hear any more about ESG. So, anyways, that's why that fund's in there. In conservatives, if you actually take time to sit down and speak to most conservatives, people who vote with their right hand, love what Elon is doing, love rooting for a first-generation American disrupting business as it was done the old-fashioned way. Everything that he stands for and everything that company is doing is right up the alley of a prototypical conservative. As much as the media and a lot of left-leaning people would like to profile conservatives like we're behind the curve technology-wise, and we want to see the world littered and destroyed by big oil. That is not true. That is not true. And I think I can speak for that group of people because I talk to them on a day-by-day basis. We love seeing Elon succeed, even before the Twitter stuff, even before he became the champion of free speech. We love to see someone get their taste in this country and disrupt big, crusty institutions like the automobile business.
Yeah, I mean, that's very good to hear. Now, I have two more questions. I know we wanted to wrap this up in half an hour and we're nearly there. One is how, I mean, I understand now better that you are actually passively allocating into sectors, but how much further in this scenario can Tesla grow in your portfolio? Because we're now at a very high point of 13%. I don't think I've seen it higher before. Do you let it just run, or is there a strict limit where you will trim? Is that something you want to do? And the second question is, do you privately drive a Tesla or not yet?
No, I don't privately drive a Tesla. I drive a Toyota with 280,000 miles on it. Like, I'm a kind of
time to change.
You're right. You are right. I thought about that. Matter of fact, I was driving. I just got my wife well, I got 4 kids, 5 and under, or I got 3.5. One's coming in July. So I'm waiting for the Cybertruck, I think, with all the babies I'm wrangling right now.
Well, you have to put your name down because there's so many reservations. But I would also recommend, I have 5 children as well, but they're grown up now. But the Model Y 7-seater is really a good option. There's no doubt about it. You should buy that for your wife.
Okay. I will take note of that. That's really cool.
And they've lowered the prices, so watch out because they're going up soon again.
The stock has been really good to me, and I was thinking to myself, boy, maybe we should support this with our actual wallet instead of just our investments. As far as what's the point in time that I decide to trim, we're going to do like a quarterly rebalance, and if anything kind of grows out of whack, we'll trim things according to what the sector influence is on the fund. Like I said, I am an active ETF manager, but I do have a lot of passive principles in me. The big thing for me was just I have a fiduciary responsibility to listen to my client and honor their wishes. And so many clients were saying, I don't want to support these businesses. So we created a fund that they can feel good about owning.
Sure, I understand that. But there is no hard limit saying you come to 15%, you start trimming. It's just a matter of reallocation of the whole portfolio.
That's right. We gave ourselves a tremendous amount of flexibility within our prospectus to do just that.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you very much, Adam. I love talking about all this, and maybe we can do that in 6 or 12 months again, see how it all went out and how you're loving your Tesla if you've ever bought one.
Well, I appreciate you, and I find you to be tremendously fascinating. I'm like new to the Twitterverse. I think I got like 30 followers or something like that. I jumped on Twitter because someone told me, they said, hey, you need to do Twitter because you got an ETF. And I was like, okay, I'm a old man trapped in a young man's body. I'm on Facebook, but I follow you and am tremendously fascinated by, some of your hot takes and just your passion for Tesla. And yeah, I just appreciate you so much for shining a light on my little American dream, not knowing me from Adam on the other side of the country, and taking an interest in our little fund. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for even taking a look at us.
No, I appreciate that. And I love looking at it. I look at it every day. So watch out, Mama is looking. Thanks a lot for all, Adam.
Thank you.